So it's been just over a week since Society of the Snow was released on Netflix, and it's a film that's really stuck with me. I've watched a few films since then, and I still can't get over what I watched when I put Society of the Snow on the other night. It's the fact that I've not been able to shake this feeling that it got me thinking about why it was that it's had this lasting effect on me. So I thought I'd delve into the chilling terror of the film and discuss why I believe this movie is so moving and also perfect. So let's get into it. Here is the chilling terror of Society of the Snow and why it's perfect. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. I'm going to delve into a couple of different things in this video, and the first that I'm going to start off with is the cinematography. One of the main things that I thought helped this movie a lot when getting across the terror, panic, haunting and unforgiving nature of the environment was the cinematography, the way that this movie was shot and also the grading that it underwent. There was a wide array of shots that were taken from extremely far away which had the pure intention of making the survivors and the plane look invisible from a distance, making us feel the fear of being alone and actually becoming invisible whilst on the planet. The white blanket looked like an infinity, and what usually looks like ants from up above in a plane went completely unnoticed in these shots. So it had that stomach-sinking feeling of understanding the fact that they were truly missing in an unforgiving landscape, and the chances of being found were near on impossible. Whilst we had these wide shots from afar which would make a point of showing us the enemy and villain in the film, which was the environment, we would also get the polar opposite when we get to take a look inside of the wreckage where everybody was gathered. We had extreme close-up shots of individuals' faces, and we were truly made to feel amongst parts of the survivor group. It was almost like we were there, and the claustrophobic nature of being pushed all up against each other in order to just be able to survive was translated across the screen so well, and that was because of those close-up shots. This was best executed in the avalanche scene that took place. The close-up shots of individuals as they were gasping for air, and whilst being amongst the 1 meter gap that was present between snow and ceiling felt tight and like there was no oxygen that was able to get through. The fact that 8 people actually died from an avalanche like that, which was depicted in the movie, was so heartbreaking to watch. And I feel like the camera captured what one would imagine the experience of being stuck in that small space would be like. We saw people in their final moments, taking their last breaths. We're amongst them at seat level height when the plane was crashing, and we saw the harsh reality of people falling out of the plane as it was crashing down into land and it split in two. The movie didn't hold back in what it showed us, and it added to the horrific nature that made the situation feel all the more real. I would also say that the grading of this movie really complemented what we were watching as well. When the group were out in the snow, it felt extremely white and like there was a light blue tinge to the film, and the same was also present when they were in the blizzard and trekking. There were barely any warm colours. In fact, the only time we saw warmth was when Nando got a light working for a brief moment, and for a small time when watching the film there was a sense of warmth, despite the fact that there was none that was present as it was just a light. It felt like this moment was made to feel even more like that due to the fact that the film was so white and so blue, and it genuinely did make me feel cold whilst watching it, a feeling that I've never really got from a film before. One last thing that I'll say on the way that the film looked is that the scenes when the group were inside of the wreckage, when they were giving up hope, was something which also had a specific look. It was almost brown and dark, and there was no light whatsoever. Something which felt very symbolic of the fact that morale was low, people had been dying, and it would take a lot for them to feel like there was an ounce of hope of being found. So that definitely played a part in setting the tone and contributing to the emotional ride as well. The way that this film looked was paramount to the feeling that it gave us when watching it. It was designed to make us feel cold with the way that it looked, and it wanted us to fear the environment and the space, just like the survivors did, so it was a job well executed. The decision to have the story told through Numa. One thing that I thought not only added to the devastating nature of the film, but also contributed to a reason that I feel it was perfect is the fact that they chose to tell the story through the perspective of Numa. Having a narrator over the top of the film was something that I didn't know if it would work, but it actually worked as a good way of having the story told to us whilst being able to see the events that were unfolding. We got an insight into somebody's mind and how they were truly feeling, rather than just the outwards projection that everybody was doing. A moment that shocked me was when Numa ended up dying. I wasn't aware of the specifics of the events at the time, and it was something which I didn't expect in the slightest, and I thought it added to the powerful nature. It would have been a lot easier for them to have told the story from the perspective of either Nando or Roberto, as they were the ones who went on the hike for 10 days in order to find help, which went on to locate the wreckage and rescue the survivors. However, choosing Numa, somebody who was a victim and never made it back home, it allowed this story to be told from the voice of somebody that didn't make it, and it reinforced their importance to the events that happened, ensuring that they would never be forgotten. We connected so much with Numa, and when his character died, it was such a heartbreaking moment, as he was our eyes and our voice of the disaster of Flight 571. So when he died, a part of us died whilst watching it. There was no longer survival, hence why immediately after we saw Nando and Roberto head off for the 10-day expedition. This decision was the right thing to do, as it gave the movie an emotional edge that I didn't expect to experience when watching it. The performances of the cast. The cast are one of the main reasons as to why this movie is so good. When watching this film, it quite literally felt like a documentary. It didn't feel like a film, and that's because these characters felt like real people, which is what I would imagine the director was going for, as this was based on real people that sadly lost their lives, but also some that miraculously survived. Each and every one of these actors delivered their roles so convincingly, and we saw the deterioration of many of them. We saw them grow to look like they hadn't eaten properly for 72 days, were subject to harsh conditions, and were losing their mentality and will to survive. I watched an interview that the director did, and apparently he put the cast on strict diets whilst they were shooting, so that they'd be able to understand as close to what it would be like. And he also shot on site and didn't use green screens when shooting outside with them, because he wanted them to experience the cold conditions when out in the snow. Something which I think enabled the cast to unlock another level to their performances, because they were experiencing hunger to some capacity and also the cold in another. I felt the bond and camaraderie that they built up, and I also felt the mourning that they'd go through when more names would be added to the dead and the toll went up. That final shot of them sitting around in the hospital was a really powerful one, when you got the sense that they were so happy and relieved that they'd survived, but they were also questioning why it was that they survived and why they weren't one of the dead that were there. It was so haunting and powerful when watching, and the fact that the movie just cut to black straight away meant that it wanted us to feel exactly that, as we were staring at ourselves on the screen in the reflection in awe of what we'd just watched. I would also say one other thing that's similar to that is the runtime of the movie. It's around 2.5 hours, not short to say the least, and the film actually felt really long when watching it. But I think that was done in a deliberate way to make us feel the amount of time that they were out in those conditions for. It didn't drag, but I felt like time was moving slow, probably like what it was doing for them whilst they were out there. Society of the Snow is a film that I think will still be giving me that feeling of fear, devastation, inspiration, coldness, and heartbreak when I come to making my best movies of the year list at the end of 2024. It was released in early Jan, and I think it will most likely still be there in December. The chilling terror was present for all of the reasons that I've just mentioned, and I think it's perfect for all of those reasons as well. So, there you have it, the chilling terror of Society of the Snow and why it's perfect. If you want to see a comparison between both Alive and Society of the Snow, then click on the card in the top corner. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find it as well. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. Did you feel the same as me during or after watching this film? I'd love to know. Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.